Super high level. I was a finance undergrad. I left undergrad. I went to work in private wealth. I was at JPMorgan. I had interned there, went back full time. It was a great job. Like, it was a great place to start, and you get to work with a lot of smart people. It just wasn't for me. And the thing is, there's a lot of digital transformation happening across capital markets right now. So FinTech is all over the place. It's in wealth tech. There's capital markets. There's all parts of it. It was all coming to my desktop is what I'm trying to say. So I was seeing cool things that I wasn't a part of. I was a user of. And I was having an existential crisis of what I wanted to do anyways. So that's like a great combination to then pivot to tech. So that's exactly what I did. I went to a startup, very early stage, was there through an acquisition, all the way through to the late stage. So I've seen and touched a lot of things across tech as an operator, always on the product side. And so a lot that I can kind of point to and talk about there. But before I do, I know you've got a surprise teed up for me. This is the part where I get hazed a little bit on air. So let's see it.
I do have a surprise for you. So we're hearing a lot about the product managers and what they do as their personal day in life. So I'm going to play 2 product manager videos that have went viral over the last 3 months. So here is number 1, a day in the life of a product manager at Microsoft.
Welcome to a day in my life as a product manager at Microsoft. Today started around 9, and the first thing I get
You start at 9?
when I get into the office.
If I'm lucky, if I'm late.
From the baristas at SVC. I miss this office so much. This is
Where's my
where I worked
barista?
last
I know,
year.
we need a
But in
barista.
the
I got the
morning,
bad
did
end of
some
this
focus work on design that would later inform one of my later meetings. Then I filmed some content for a Christmas video that my team was putting together. At 11, I spoke with the designers about that work that I had done earlier, and part of my team is in the office.
We
so
must have
had
missed
an
that part where she did that work
in-person
earlier.
meeting, and
She did
that
some
was
work
followed by
earlier.
a
I did this
lunch.
work earlier.
That's inferred.
I know.
A little
Of course she
walk
did the
around
work.
campus because I don't get to explore this campus that often, and it's so pretty. Then I did some work
very
on
pretty.
deep learning and met up at 3 with one of my intern friends from last year. And then I headed home around 4:40. Bye.
4:40, they'd be looking for me.
4:40. So at least she's in the office.
Right.
Right. And then the second one, and I think it was Net Capital Girl that said the next video is going to do for product managers what Top Gun did for Navy recruiting.
Totally.
And so anyway, so here I'm going to play the second one. We got another minute, but this one was the most elucidating for me.
Yes.
My coworkers keep saying I need to make like a tech TikTok, because if you look at my TikTok, you'd never guess I have a job.
I wonder why. That's crazy.
Anyways, this is our current workstation. Callie and I are what you call product managers. Callie, what is your team over?
My team is over reporting and internal tools.
Should think about that.
And I am over what we call card experience. So we work on like anything from activating your credit card to freezing, reissue, shipping, all the good stuff. What's a PM?
Now I don't even know.
This might be the cringiest thing I've ever seen.
It's so hard to watch.
so
I've
hard
never
to
gotten
watch.
through it in one
Help
sitting.
them know what to build so that you have a product to use.
Yeah, exactly. So you might have a team, like the engineers actually do the developing, the coding, which is the impressive part. Designers also do the impressive part, which is everything you see when you're in a software. Product managers essentially decide what the team's going to work on, do competitive research,
Gaslight.
prioritize bugs, keep
Yes,
focused,
that's- yeah.
Yes, that's what they do.
and
Yes.
driving towards
They gaslight the
business
development
outcomes.
team.
It's
So,
crazy.
That's what we do. And we work from home, which means you work from the internet.
Or you don't do any of
Or
those
you
things.
don't.
Yeah, you just,
Today. Thanks for tuning in. I hope all you coworkers are happy. I'm branching out into the tech niche.
Okay. All right. So now that we've recovered from that atrocity, what is a real day in the life of a product manager look like? Like, what are you
100%.
actually doing? Like, what do you get up? What time do you get up? What time? I want to know the nuts and bolts of something that's actually added value.
100%. And like, here's the thing about this, because like I've seen these videos. That video's not new. Like, it came out in like 2021. Correlation versus causation. Like, not long after that is when a lot of big tech layoffs started because rates started going up and people had to start being responsible. But you can kind of point to that and be like, wow, that was really apocalyptic for a lot of people. But part of this is like, okay, if you're working on a big tech consumer platform where the value already exists, the product market fit is already there, the customers are sticky. Say you get the majority of revenue from a very legacy business that you've monopolized. I'm not going to call any names out, Google, but like you can afford to hire big teams like that and be like, wave in the big talent. You're a PM, you're a developer, blah, blah, blah. Put everyone together and be like, well, we don't have anything ready to go yet. So like, go play outside. And like, that's how you end up in a situation like this versus where I am, which has been like early stage B2B SaaS, specifically in FinTech, where like we are coming in, we're solving a specific problem in financial markets. We have competitors. Our clients are super sophisticated and have high expectations because they're using other technology solutions. Like we have to be on the ball. And like we have to, like, if we're going to develop a new product in addition to maintaining an existing one, like we have to really split our time and like be really efficient about it. Like we ultimately try to be the leaders of like, where is the business going? What is the story? How do we get ahead of it? And like, how do we translate that to something that a developer can build a solution for that we can take to sales who can sell, find out if we did it right or did it wrong and iterate. That's the high level. I'll go so much more granular than that. But like, that's my initial reaction to something like that is like, if you're not actively solving problems, then you're going to go to the pool because like, that's our job. And like, if that's not what we have to do all day, then like, that's how you end up in a situation like that.
So what I'm hearing you say is that is a better example of a late stage product manager. And not to say that their role is check the box, but that their role is more incremental.
Yes.
Does that make sense? It's like incremental improvements at best. So walk me through like I want to get as deep as possible. Like,
totally.
What is it? 7 a.m. What are you waking up? What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about when you go to bed?
100%. Like for me, like I have always owned specific products, and especially being in early stage tech, like I've taken products from like being on paper to like in an MVP state to like on someone's desktop, watching them use it, figuring out if we did it right. So like for me, when I wake up and I'm like getting ready and I go to the office, like I already kind of know what my checklist is on like a quarterly basis, what our firm's guidance is for like the next 3 years, and like what I have to do today to accrue to those things. So like, and I put this in the playbook as well, like the real goal of a product manager is like, okay, the firm has these top level KPIs. We want to grow revenue this way. We want to enter this market. We want to go international. We want to penetrate this channel and kick out the incumbent. Like we have these things we want to do. We have salespeople who want to get in front of the clients. We have developers that want to work on tough problems where they feel stimulated. Yep. My job is to align everyone around those things in a way that fits those long-term goals. So we want to grow in the international channel. Okay, great. I have a roadmap for that. So like this quarter, here's the 10 things that we're going to do that we think are going to accrue to this, which means today I'm going to talk to these potential users. I'm going to talk to these sales stakeholders. I'm going to take that feedback. I'm going to write it all down. I'm going to socialize it. I'm going to go to legal and see what we can do. I'm going to talk to our tech leads and see what we can do. I'm going to break that down to individual tickets of, okay, today this guy works on this. Tomorrow this guy does this because of this. Get to the minimum viable product, which is what we live and die by. And we can talk more about that. Get that out the door, track the data, see if we were successful. And if we weren't, no problem. Like we fail all the time, but we fail quickly and we fail unemotionally, which is critical. Like I'm never married to the results. I am married to like, this thing works for me. And if it's not working, we're going to move on. Get it out the door and then move on.
So give me an example of leadership coming to you with a specific challenge.
Yep.
And like, give me like a real world specific challenge. And how did you dissect that problem?
Yeah.
And how did you get that to because a little bit of translation between executive and customer into developer speak, for lack of a better word. So walk me through like a specific scenario. Because I want to see, because I laughed at the videos too.
Yeah.
But I know that's the 1% edge case of what you guys do.
Totally. And they ruin it for the rest of us. But the reality is like, I am the guy, like the buck stops with me. So like the business says, we want to take our product that's successful in the US. We want to use it in the UK. We've never done business in the United Kingdom before. We want to go this is a hypothetical, by the way, but like we want to go to the United Kingdom, to which I would say, okay, great. Like now I have to think through like what everything about like, and everything, by the way, like
the legal
ramifications, the legal ramifications, the user behaviors, like how does their market work? When do they do business? Like if you were to go to Portugal, they'll take a siesta. In LATAM, they're more decentralized. And I made big players in the spaces that I've worked. So do we change to a more consumer type model? How do we handle time zone changes, especially in FinTech? If you're at all transaction oriented, time zones matter. Like what is the user's experience when they come to the platform? All of that kind of stuff. Or like, our data feeds, right? We get data in the US from, 9:30 to 4 if you're doing something in markets. But in the UK, that 9:30 to 4 Eastern doesn't work. So like, do we have to change vendors? Do we have to ingest it in a different way? Somebody has to literally ask all these questions. Like the thing that I've learned from being a product manager is nothing on the screen is an accident. It's all intentional. Somebody has thought through the color of every button, when you click on it, why you're clicking on it, what journey you are going on, and what we can do to keep you engaged in a way that we're going to add value for you so that you can add value back to us.
So you said the word journey.
Yep.
So one of the things I talked about when I was in consulting was like a customer journey.
Yeah.
What is, like, double click into that? What helps you shape those decisions?
Yep.
To make the journey, and obviously the font color is an output.
Yeah.
But how do you think about the customer journeys?
Oh, yeah. So we do a lot of what's called user experience research and design. So this is a mix of qualitative and quantitative, right? So the qualitative is, hey, I talked to sales or I talked to a prospective client and they told me a story, right? Like, I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to do that. We will start literally going to a whiteboard. And these are some of the highlights of my career, is like being in a room with all my guys and whiteboarding it out. We will start to talk to, okay, if he comes in now, he finds this. How do we show it to him without being too aggressive? How do we get him to click on this? Because it'll take him somewhere else. As we start to build something that does this, the initial iteration is not going to be the shiniest thing in the world, right? We want to prove a concept as quickly as possible. We will track the data behind that journey. And what I mean is we will track click metrics. We'll track user sessions. How long were you in here? Did you do what we wanted you to do? Did it take you a while to get there? Did you leave? Did you get frustrated and leave? Like, technology today, like a lot of the tools that we use, have allowed us to break into that and actually see so-and-so got this far before they exited the platform. And they still did business, but they just did it away from us. And like, that is critical for us to understand so that we can patch those holes in the ship and keep it up.
So what's a good example of something where you put a feature out and it had amazing uptick? And then give me the counter example of where you put a feature out and it crashed and burned.
Oh, I don't even know where to start on both of those. I have 10s in each direction. There was one feature that I put out that was solving a data integrity problem for a lot of our clients, because a lot of the platforms that I've worked on have been very data intensive in what they're giving to the end user. Yeah. And we have to get that data from a lot of people. And that's hard because data comes in different formats. People have different ways of doing it. When you're asking people to send you things systematically, you're asking them to do work. Right. And like, they're gonna be like, well, hang on, you got to fit into my roadmap now. And now suddenly we're going head to head on something when we want the same thing. So I had built a feature that allowed us to get data more succinctly from a UI solution. So instead of needing a bunch of engineers to do it, a human who knows the business could go in and be like, oh, they want this from me. And if I give it to them, it's going to help me do business with them in a way that accrues to my bottom line. Yep. I'll give it to them this way. Great. We built a not shiny solution to do exactly what I just said. I mean, not shiny is an understatement. It was basically a box of rocks on the screen, but it got the job done and it was more efficient and people loved it. So then we're like, now we're going to invest in it. We're going to clean it up and we're going to make it faster. We're going to do all this stuff. And like, that's the best way to do it. You have to divorce yourself from the product, because I thought it was a good idea, but I'm not going to know until I see the numbers. Versus my next story is like, I thought this was a good idea. And then we put it out there and it blew up. And like, you can't cry about it. Because stuff is going to blow up all the time when you're a PM. And you just move along. You keep thinking about the North Star. So my next story on this is I've put out features where I'm like, oh, I have an idea for a user journey that I'm going to create. Like, I know that so-and-so wants to go from A to B. They're going this way right now. I can shorten the journey by introducing this button in this area, and we're going to track it, and it's going to be faster. It's going to be slick. It's going to give them all sorts of like, oh, wow, these guys are so smart. Can't believe they're thinking of me. But I was thinking of it from my perspective, and I was wrong. So I put this feature out there and I didn't socialize it enough. I didn't go through the proper product methodology that I've laid out. And as a result, like, no one even ended up finding it. They'd find it and get frustrated. And I was like, you know what? I'm not even gonna try to save this. Like, we have better problems to solve. And like, you just move on. It's critical.
Okay. Let's take a step back. So you started your career out as a banking analyst in high net worth. Talk to me about that role, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of people that tune in that are interested in, like, I want to break into finance. They're probably college students. Talk to me about that role. And then with the inflection point, you did it. What made you pivot over to tech?
100%.
Walk me through that, and take a lot of time to do it.
I for sure will. So I started getting interested in finance back in high school. I actually had a really cool personal finance teacher who was like the man, like super young guy.
We need more of that in America.
I couldn't even believe it. Like, super young guy. He had been a commodities trader, had made a bunch of money. Yeah. And like, he bought a bunch of real estate. And so he goes to become a high school personal finance teacher, which is not where you saw that story going, right?
Absolutely not.
Me either. Even at 16, I was like, what are you doing here? And so he said to us, he's like, look, like, I don't have to be here right now. Like, I made all this money. I own all this real estate. I could be on the beach. I'm here because I want to be. Like, I am completely independent. Like, I want to impart knowledge on you guys. That's why I came. And I was like, wow, I want to live like that. I want to be like this guy. Should I study finance? Should I be this self-sufficient? That got me like through the door mentally. I go to school, I study finance, I get an internship, luckily, at JPMorgan Private Bank. Like I was so unqualified compared to my cohort. I walked in and I was like, I can't believe I'm even here.
Something tells me you talked yourself into that internship.
It's how I talk myself into this room, right? I'm a big storytelling guy. They're like, you must know things. And I was like, you're going to be so disappointed. But so I show up and I'm like, well, I'm going to keep this ruse going, and end up having a great experience. Interned, joined back full time, worked as a private banking analyst. I was on the desk. I was working with bankers, investors, really sophisticated clients. It was a great experience. And like, you can grow up in that world and be so successful. Like some of the bankers who I worked for, like they're covering these brilliant clients. They're doing interesting work. Like they're making a ton of money. Like everybody's super happy. And I'm like, wow, I should be so lucky to ever be as cool as this guy is. But where my head was at was, it just wasn't for me. I wasn't as stimulated by it.
What was bugging you about it?
Nothing was really bugging me about it. You know what it was? Like I would look at my boss, who again, super successful, very happy, like everyone respects him. And I'm just like, I just don't want your job. I don't want to deal with the things on a day-to-day
What
that
was
you
he
deal
doing?
with.
You got to tell me more. What was he dealing with that was like, it was like, that's not for me?
Like,
because like you have way more headaches than a private wealth manager has right now.
yeah, that is for sure. I know,
You
right?
have way more headaches.
Now I'm like, what was I thinking? But like, I'll give you an example. Like when I was there, we were dealing with clients that like, we're dealing with like their family office. We're talking about guys with hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, right? So like they're going to say jump and we're going to say how high.
Yeah.
And so that can get a little bit old. Like there was one guy who called us to roll a bunch of T-bills, and which is like an operational thing, right? And like, we're talking about tens of millions of dollars worth of T-bills, but he was like, I'm not paying the commission on this. Like I do so much business with you guys. I'm not doing it. Do it for free, or I'm doing it with Goldman. Like those are the kind of people we would start to work with. And I was like, and of course we did it for free.
Of course.
Because like, he's right. Like he's completely right. And he's sophisticated. He's going to know this. But like that was the type of stuff that I was like, I don't know if I can do this at scale like some of these guys can. I give them all the credit in the world because they've built amazing businesses, but it just wasn't for me. But it is for other people, and I'm not going to discount it at all. Like this is not like a don't work at JPMorgan thing. Please do if you could be so lucky. It was great for my career. But as that was happening, I was taking a really big step back and thinking, what do I want to do? And so I started looking around the bank. I'm like, do I want to go into investment banking? Do I want to go into markets? I mean, I'd be blessed to get any of these opportunities, right? But I then took a lot of time to think about, well, what's interesting to me?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, not just like, oh, I should go do IB because my friends do IB and now they're making more money than me. Like, I removed myself from that mentality and was like, well, what would I get super stoked about when I'm in the shower in the morning to go solve, right? What am I going to think about before I go to bed of like, oh, I'm so excited that I get to be the guy who takes care of this and now the world's a better place to some degree. And my head landed on tech. And the reason was what I kind of alluded to earlier, like all these new softwares were landing on my desk to make my life easier. And I was like, who built this? Who came up with this? This is so good. So
I can
slick.
do that.
Yeah, I was like, I can do this. I know the problems that I have. I would love to build something for me and then watch the next Ryan Harrington go use it and be like, this is sick. And so I was like, what is that? And I was like, oh, I didn't even know what a product manager was, which is hilarious because now I am one. 4 years ago, I was like, what is this concept?
You watched some TikToks, you figured it out.
I was like, I get to go to the pool? This is great. They make coffee? But so that got me interested in it. And so there was a startup that I was looking at. I had used one of their products and I was like, this is sick. Like it was on my desk every single day. So I was the user. I was like, I should build for me. And there's no better example than like this thing that was built for me. So I reached out, managed to get a job there.
So wait. You reached out and
Yep.
and sourced your own job.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, keep going. Unpack that. You got to unpack that.
You absolutely have to. I mean, if you think about it, if you throw your resume down the resume hole, like, good luck. Like, honestly, like, luck is all that's on your side. If you have a story to tell, people love stories, right? If you can reach out to someone and be like, hey, I'm using your product. I really enjoy it. I would use it more if you did this. Like, I have feedback on it, but also I can help you with this. I can help solve this problem. Like, that's what I did. And that fits the bill because there's immediate value.
That doesn't hit the recruiting pipeline mentality. I will check the boxes. I'm a target school.
Yeah.
I will go. Like so, the problem with that is uncertainty.
Yes.
And no one wants to be in an uncertain world. So
No.
what do you do to manage that? Was your hit rate 1 for 1? Did you say that to 3 different people?
No, it was terrible.
It was
like,
well, walk us through the actual process. You're telling me the victory story. Tell me the struggle story.
Well, so like I'll preface this with like one of my favorite quotes is like Peter Thiel being like, competition is for losers. Like that's how I approach this, where I'm like, I don't want to just apply for jobs. I want to stand out. And this is something that I've done even more recently, which I'll tell you another story on this as I've been trying to expand my career further as an investor. So like I would LinkedIn message people and I wouldn't even expect a response, but I would have something ready to go and I would send it out the door. I mean, I've made Excel trackers of people. I'll spend more time finding people to reach out to than actually reaching out.
Yeah.
I'll put together the tracker and be like, okay, they work at this firm. This is what they do. This is our connection. I'll have a canned thing that I reach out with that I'll tweak based on the notes in the tracker. And then I'll go out and I'm just going to start hammering them. And most of them won't respond. I'll give you an example recently. I've been doing a lot more work on the investing side personally, and I've had some opportunities come up for me in that world. And so one of the ways that I've been able to get in front of people is I'll send them a deal. I literally, because I live in New York City, I've done private investing myself. I have my own small nascent pipeline of deals. I will get one in the early stage, and it's someone who I know who wants help raising anyways. So they're like, hey, talk to anybody who might know about this. And my LinkedIn outreach will be like, hey, I saw your profile. I think it's really interesting what you do. I'd love just to pick your brain. And by the way, like, here's the deal that I'm looking at. They're raising. Here's why I like it. Check it out.
So I get those. I get those mails. People send me, they're like, we got a deal for you, pre-seed round.
Yep.
And it never lands on me.
Why not?
I don't really know. It doesn't land on me. But what I heard you say that's different is you're like, can I talk to you? And also I have a deal.
Yes.
It's like they lead with the, forgive me the lack of a better word. There's no foreplay.
Yes.
Like they just lead with the, here's a deal.
Guy like me, strictly business.
Strictly, yeah. It's like straight to the deal. And I'm like, delete, archive, like really, really quickly.
Yeah.
So like, how many cold mails do you send out on LinkedIn a week?
So it depends on the time of year or like where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
But like when I was doing this more aggressively, a little bit more back in the day, not as much recently. I'm very happy right now. I could send out like, let me think about this. I could build a tracker over a couple days of like 50 people that I want to hit. And then I'm going to go like 10 a day, Monday through Friday.
But you're
like,
always doing this.
I'm always doing this.
And you
always.
have a full-time job, and
Yeah.
you're still always doing this.
Your full-time job is to get another full-time job, even if you're happy where you are. Like there's a saying from literally Sex and the City that is totally true, and I've never even seen the movie, but I still agree with this, that everyone in New York is looking for at least one of the following, which is an apartment, a relationship, or a job.
That's beautiful.
It is. I can't say it's enough. I've never seen that movie, but it's a great quote.
It's a great quote.
I look around and I'm like, oh my God, all my friends who are like me, who are super ambitious and like doing well, but always want more. Same thing.
Same.
Same. Every single day. So yeah, if you have a job and you're happy like that, it could still be taken away from you. You got to stay competitive. You gotta stay networking.
So you're 10 a week at least.
Oh yeah.
At least. And is there ever a week when you don't send a cold mail?
I've not been doing as much recently.
Tell me why.
I've been happy at my job. And now I'm like, I hope they see this. But yeah, I've been happy. I have great opportunities right now. So I'm not looking to really like make a move. But like when I was younger and I was trying to jump into tech land for the first time, when you're asking somebody to take a chance on you, like you're like, I've hired people before. And I see someone who like, okay, this resume kind of looks like mine did, but honestly, like I'm not in the position to take a risk right now. I need somebody who can come in and work because we're busy. So if I'm going to deviate from that plan and take the risk, I need to be sold a little bit. And so if they could sell me a little bit, then like I've always said that like people who have reached out to me with a compelling outreach, not just like, hey, Ryan, we saw that you're hiring and I'm a grad student. I'm like, I file that one away. But like if I get something creative or like there's a joke in like it could be anything. You give me a good one-liner in the opener, and I'm gonna be like, I kind of want to talk to this guy. Maybe he's cool. Like it's just that simple. People are people at the end of the day.
All right. So look. So you're not looking now. You're happy. What would it take for something to hit your desk for you to reevaluate what's going on? Right. So like I've been in a situation before where happy in the role when I was at McKinsey, and then suddenly I get an inbound. And I'm like, oh, this is different. It's a game changer. Yeah. What would it take for you? What does it take for you to reevaluate things?
You know what it is? For me, the reason I love being a product manager is I love solving problems, especially if it's for the first time. Like if I've been working in FinTech for a few years now, so like in our little space that I'm in, like I do know it well enough. I'm not the best, I'm not even close, but I've learned a lot about it. If there was an opportunity to do that again from scratch and it be challenging, like I care more about the challenge at times than I do about the compensation today. Like if it was like, oh, like if this works out, we'll make a bunch of money, but up front, you might even take a pay cut. Like if it's a hard enough problem and I could be stimulated by it, like I could sink my teeth into it and do like 80 hours a week just thinking about this. Like when I'm thinking about the problem in the shower, I'm happy. Honestly, that's like a good barometer for a guy like me. It's like if it's that stimulating that I'm like going to bed and I'm waking up and I want to make this better, And I have that right now. So that's why I'm where I am. But that's what I'm always looking for. The day that I don't have that is the day that I'm going to be sniffing around.
So you've got some side investments that you've seeded. Talk to me through, what does your investment buy box look like? Like, what are you interested in, whether it's in FinTech or something else? Walk me through, like, how do you evaluate an investment?
Totally.
And what's interesting?
Totally. So for me, I've only ever done early stage investing, and that's very intentional. And I'll tell you a good story on how I got started in this, because it wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm ready to start investing in private companies. Like, a lot of this is like you're just in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
So here's a good one for you. So I'm at the office. 2 seats down from me is this guy named Ha. Ha's a quant engineer. He's our head of quant. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. He was a big mentor to me early on coming into tech. I have nothing but good things to say about him. He was head of quant. So like, this is a guy that wears sweatpants and flip-flops to the office every day. And that's fine. He's so smart that we're like, dude, you can come in.
Whatever you want to do.
Come in your pajamas. Like, just keep solving the world's problems and we're happy. He comes in one day in a full suit with a tie. And I'm like, Ha, who died? Like, are you going to a funeral? Are you interviewing? Like, what is, I know something is going on.
Something is afoot.
Something's afoot. Like, this is not another day in paradise, right? And he's like, oh, no, I'm going to a prospective investor event later. Like, you should come with me. Because we had a close relationship. And I was like, I would love to. I got to go home and change, clearly. But, like, I will absolutely do that. So after work, I go with him to this event. It turns out the guy raising money is like a 3-time entrepreneur, the founder of Omni Labs, which I ended up investing in, spoiler alert. 3-time entrepreneur, had sold his last company to Google, has a PhD in computer science from Stanford. Like, he's checking all the founder boxes. I had to look at the actual company as well, which I did later. But like, he's checking a lot of boxes that up front, I'm like, this is very exciting. I can't believe I'm in this room right now. Turns out this guy, the founder, Thuc Phu, is from Vietnam. Ha, from Vietnam. They went to high school together. So it's like small, like, and to be in New York City at the same time, like, how small does this world get? And I'll get to the point on this. When I'm there, I meet him, I get the financials to do my own diligence. And I'm looking for things at the early stage, mostly just like, what's the burn, right? Like, are they raising money because they need to survive? Or are they raising money because they're growing?
Yeah.
That's like the number one thing. A lot of the rest of the model is just forecasting because their revenue is nascent and it's usually like, concentrated to like 4 or 5 buyers.
Yeah.
Like, there's just going to be a lot of risk in the model. So you have to hope that the guy is going to be able to take you away from the concentration, reduce his burn, and actually grow the business. And that's what you're hoping that he's raising for. And so if you can distill that all out and get comfortable with it and get comfortable with them, which I could pretty quickly because I was like, this guy's done this like 3 times. Fine. That's a bit of an example. That's what got me to go forward. The bigger thing for me was like being in that room. Because with early stage, you want to just get access to things. You want to know what's going on. And like, I have friends who are like institutional level investors. They work for big VCs.
Yep.
And they focus on early stage, like pre-seed through Series A. And they're like, yeah, the number one way that I can add value to my team is not just being the best at Excel here, because everyone's good at Excel. And like, they have an investment criteria. I'm just trying to solve those. I'm trying to answer questions for them. It's sourcing. So the more you can network, the more you can plug yourself into an industry. And I've learned now, like, I've done a lot of like generalist approach to this, but like, I work in FinTech. People now want to hear what I have to say. I can get in those rooms, offer an opinion, and then suddenly there's like, oh, it's valuable to know this guy. We should call him when we're raising. We'd love to have him on the cap table. Maybe
is that for your personal account?
Personal.
It's for your personal account. Okay. So you have a view on FinTech. What role do you see FinTech playing in investment management? We hear a lot about, is AI going to disrupt the P associate? Is all this, what is FinTech going to do to private equity, to venture capital, as far as the holdco side?
Yeah.
Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What's going to happen there?
I think it's a great thing. I think I've been hearing this for years, and I don't remember who first told me this. I think I heard this when I was at JPMorgan, that AI is not going to replace people. It's never going to be like net destructive. And we've talked about this. Technology never in history.
It's never destroyed a single job.
Never
Not
been
one job.
Never been net
It's displaced
destructive.
them, but it's never been net job.
It's moved people to better things. Like, we don't have people, lighting candles on the street anymore. And like, that's a good thing. AI is the same thing, where it's just going to turn one guy into a superhuman. Like, a product manager today in general faces 10 engineers before he like runs out of capacity. Because then you're spending all your time having to manage people as opposed to like find the next problem to solve. With AI, it's like, well, maybe now you can have 15. And those 15 are like twice as good. So like in the tech side, that's how I think about it. In investment management, it's even better. There's a girl who I met who you would actually really like, and you should probably have her on. She's in Y Combinator right now. She was a friend of a friend. I met her right before she got in. And so I was actually there like 2 days before she got the call, side story. She's in Y Combinator with her company, and they're doing AI-assisted due diligence. And they're literally calling it analyst as a service. But it's not supposed to replace your analyst. It's supposed to just empower them to like, okay, I need to build this model. Here's the assumptions tab. And it'll go, here's the model. Like, go in and tweak it.
Yeah.
And like suddenly like they're doing more, they can do more work, they can sit in more calls, they can be in the boardroom as opposed to just at their desk all day. Like everybody wins in this story. It may look scary at first, and like companies in the meantime are going to spend a ton of money on it, and their capex is going to go through the roof. Like that's a separate problem. But like we're all going to be so happy about it in the future.
What do you think drives that fear? Because it was the same thing. The assembly line came out in the early 1900s, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, the jobs are going away. It's more productive." But what we found is the assembly line had to get maintained. They had to have more technicians. So, like, what do you think it still continues to drive that fear? I did a thread like for the last 100 years, the robots are taking all the jobs. But every time some new technology comes up, like, what is driving this fear?
I put it on both sides, right? There's like fear on like the consumer side where it's like, oh, I'm going to lose my job or something like this is going to happen. Or it's fear on the business side where it's, oh, we're going to get displaced. We're going to be Kodak in this story.
Oh, yeah.
Or we're going to try to go down this rabbit hole like the tech bubble and spend all our money on it and it go nowhere. And now we're out of business, which is the CapEx bubble, which we're seeing a little bit in public markets. And I think it's just, it's the fear of change. It's getting a little too excited and then being like, well, now we don't know what to do. Like for me personally, I've started thinking about, oh, how can AI integrate into the products that I work on? How can we like solve problems using this new tooling that didn't exist before? I personally look at it not as like, oh, it's AI, right? Like that's a buzzword.
It's a buzzword.
What it really is just better back-end engineering for your tool. It's like instead of having a 4-cylinder, now you have a 6-cylinder. Like that's how you should think about it. But because it's so new, like we don't even know how to do it. Like, oh, what is a GPU? What are all these costs that we're spending now? And I get pressed on that and I appreciate it. There's like, how do we responsibly integrate this in a way that makes sense for like the story and not losing that vision of like what I said earlier, the firm has these goals. Does this actually help with that? Versus, okay, on the other side, like, oh no, it's going to be AI, it's going to take over. No, we're going to responsibly integrate it. We're going to put safeguards in place. There's going to be humans that are like checking boxes before it moves on. You know, it's going to be fine in the end. We're all going to be scared and we're going to hit a ton of speed bumps in the meantime. Like it's not going to be like, oh, now we're up and to the right.
Yep.
It's going to happen. But and also this is me being a glass half full kind of guy, maybe to a fault, maybe because I haven't fell on my face hard enough yet. But like, that's how I feel.
So that's a good point. So tell me about a time when you were either the product manager, probably the product manager, of when you fell flat on your face, and how did you get back up?
Oh my God, I have such a story here. So I was working on something where essentially a part of a product that I was doing was very workflow intensive, and it involved a lot of people having to do things like with each other. So it's not like a single user journey, right? Ryan comes to the platform, he does this, then this happens, and like Ryan's who we care about in this story. It's like Ryan's doing something and then Paul sees him do it and does something in response, and then Ryan does a response to Paul. Like it's almost like a marketplace kind of thing. And so as part of that, we were sending email notifications to people involved in this workflow intentionally, right? To keep them engaged, to make it easier for them to not slip up, reduce errors. Like we had the best intentions and it was going really well. I wanted to clean up some technology debt. Tech debt is what we call it, where essentially a bunch of like old actions were just kind of sitting in our database and clogging it up. And so I was like, oh, we'll just like, move them all to this end state. We'll just shuffle them along. No problem. Like we'll clean it up. I'll be the hero. No one will even know that I did it. And then it'll be fine. What I had failed to consider, and this is like a classic product management story, which is like I went and did something and I considered 9 things out of 10. And that last one was like nuclear. Like that's what happened here. Because in the process of like, oh, this old data, like we're going to move it to the graveyard. No problem. I didn't think about what that was going to do workflow-wise because it was still part of this workflow. So we move all this old data to the graveyard, which it was supposed to do naturally. And so when that happened, it triggered those emails because emails happen with each one. So I knew immediately what I did wrong because I was like, all right, guys, we're going to make this change. We'll release it tonight after hours. No problem.
How many emails got sent?
I wake up, I check my phone, and I get up early. And this is early for like my boss to be emailing me. But like I have emails from my boss and like 15 different like core clients. Like clients, like you say their name, people perk their ears up, email me directly and being like, hey, why are we getting blasted with emails right now? We've gotten 10,000 emails so far and the market's not even open yet. And I'm like, oh my God. I immediately put 2 and 2 together. I was like, oh, I missed that one thing and it was an atom bomb. Got it. So go online. I'm like, oh, yep. All those things that we cleared out are triggering emails and we trigger them on a job cycle so we don't do them all at once. So it's like, it was a slow bleed, like all day long emails are getting sent. And I'm just getting lit. I'm at this point calling customers and being like, look, I made the mistake. I'm falling on this sword. It was me. we have a solution. Like, this will stop by around 3 p.m. today. Like, we have a solution. We're going to fix it. I apologize. It was my fault. This is not reflective on like the business or anybody else. Like, you can take my head to whoever you take it to. I made a mistake. And like, that's the biggest thing to do, by the way, is like, we're all gonna make mistakes like this. And this is why whenever I interview somebody for a job, I always ask them, like, tell me the biggest mistake you made. And I want to hear a story like this. And then I'll be like, you're my
That sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
That sounded like a bad day.
It was a terrible day.
It was a bad day.
I think about it.
Sounds like that's like a 7-beer day.
I think about it not often. Like, that's another one.
Not often.
That's another one. Like, in the shower, I'm like, man, I really wish I was better at my job, kind of things, you know. But it happens.
Like, if you're not messing anything up, you're not doing anything good either.
I was talking to a guy recently. He was an early security engineer at Facebook, and now he's a VC. And like, you can imagine, this guy did very well. He was early.
For sure.
And we were talking about this because I told him this story, and he laughed, of course. And then he was like, I was the guy that put Facebook down for like 3 hours in 2014. And like, when Facebook's down, it loses like $20 million a minute in lost ad. And I was like, all right, fine. You win this round.
You won this round.
I'm sure you had a lot longer showers than I did after that, just banging the wall. But it happens. Like, tech is like, we laugh about it later because like, I didn't mean to do it. You know?
Yeah, it's so funny. And like, I'm the industrials guy. A bad mistake for me is like throwing like 6 hours worth of product in the trash can, but like in tech, a bad day is annoying like 20,000 customers, right? Yeah. It's like, that's very, I actually put in perspective. I think industrials wins in this spot, actually.
This is my thing with product management is like, you get a lot of responsibility up front, especially in the early stage startup arena where like, they need somebody to come in who knows the business context and knows what problems they're trying to solve and like actually wants to do it. So you can end up with like a 24-year-old, which is probably how old I was at the time, so a few years ago, having that kind of power to make a mistake on that scale. So it's like a double-edged sword. When you see that video and you were like, I want to be a PM, it is not like that outside of those contexts. It's actually a very stressful job.
So what advice, like, given that, like you've told like it's a horrible experience.
Yep.
You've got some good side, some upside. You've got early exposure, which is a good thing.
Yep.
What advice would you give to someone that's going in that says, hey, product management is pretty cool. You're telling a better story than pull people. Like, do you want to start in finance? Do you want to start in engineering?
Product is interesting because people most often end up in it not having known what it was, or they were doing something else before. So
Okay.
like, I stumbled into it. I didn't know what it was when I graduated college, and now I couldn't be happier because I love it. It's a lot of, it depends on the product that you're doing, honestly. Like, there's a lot of engineers who become product managers because they just had that interest in the business and they know the whole tech stack, so it's a natural fit. There's business people who like are in an arena like FinTech who started in finance, who are the perfect people for it because they know the business context already and they can learn the tech later. You're always going to fill in one of those gaps, so it's all about where you start. And then there's things like, hard tech, right? The guy who's being a product manager at NVIDIA, I'm never going to be qualified for that. Are you kidding me? The level of engineering you need to have on solid product. So the point that I'm trying to make with this is you find something that you're interested in, right? Whether you're interested in finance, you're interested in healthcare, you're interested in biotech, you get into that world at all. And then if you can prove yourself, people will take a chance on you. Because I didn't have an engineering background. I had a finance background. And next thing you know, I'm in a WeWork with brilliant engineers and they have to trust me. That's hard. But if you can prove yourself by being like, look, I know what customers want and I know when I'm wrong and I take feedback really well, that's what make a good product.
So this feels a bit like the Rick Rubin interview, if you've seen this. Can you code?
Barely.
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 Right? Barely. All right. Could you organize a database? Like, could you organize a database? Could you like stand in for someone?
If I had ChatGPT, I could get close. But
You could
no,
get close.
I couldn't do it all the way.
Okay, so you like this really feels like the Rick Rubin story of like being a producer. So what about you do developers find engaging, and why do they want to work? Obviously, you're an engaging person, but like, why do they want to work with you?
This is actually a great question because this happens all the time when someone who's not an engineer with no computer science background ends up in a product seat and suddenly brilliant technical people have to work with you and they may not want to at first. And I've had conversations with like VP level engineers that I work with now who have told me straight up like, look, when you came into the seat, we were like, great, here we go. Another guy that looks like everybody else in finance we have to talk to, doesn't know anything. You have to earn the seat at the table. And like the way that you do it is like you find out what you're good at in this equation that is like taking a product from not existing to existing and you just focus on that. And you find the people who can fill in the gaps and you just say to them like, look, like I know this thing and I know that I'm right on this. I know that you know this part. Can you figure out what to do here? So for example, like the product brief, which I put in the playbook, like that's like the golden thing that I do, which is literally like, hey, I talked to 15 users. I wrote down all their interviews. Here's the consistencies. Here's where I think we get the most bang for our buck. And then I go to my tech leads and I'm like, hey, how do you think we should solve this given what you know and what I just told you? And you trust them. And over time, they'll start to trust you because they're like, oh, you tell the story here. Great. We then code it up. Great. Sales then sells it. Got it. Like you just become part of the value chain.
And interesting. So one of the things I always like tell my team is, and I did this when I took the keys to the chemicals industry business. And it was the first thing I did was I put on some coveralls and I went out there and I made batches with the team. I like help stir the ingredients up, react to the chemicals. And I feel like there's a little bit of, it's a little analogous to what you do. Like you actually do the work and unpack what they're doing. So given that, what feedback, like if I did anonymous feedback with the team you're working on right now, what would they say about you?
That's a good question because I'm thinking about feedback that I've gotten over the years that has made me better, that has been really constructive. Some of the things that actually have really pushed me to be better are like, oh, Ryan's trying to do too many things not well. He should do one thing really well and then rely on us to do the rest. Like I would write documentation for like, oh, like here's a problem that we should solve. And I would say, here's how we should solve it. We should use this database. And they're like, Ryan, that's not your job. We know what we're going to know what to do. Like we're the experts. And I have learned over time that like trying to overextend myself is actually bad for the team. Like there's a thing that I'm good at. And if I keep getting better at it, I will expand here. That's one thing. Also, like being able to fail quickly is more important than you think. Because if you're a product manager and you get like married to your product and you feel connected to it, you've lost. Because like that thing works for the business at the end of the day, just like you do. And this happens a lot with junior product managers. Like you give them a part of the platform and you're like, hey, you own this experience. And they're like, oh, it's mine. Like it makes you feel all fuzzy in the morning because you get to have something. But like if it's not doing well and like the business's goal is to make money and get users, like we got to cut and run here. Like we got to either save it and change something dramatically, or we're just going to like stop doing it and put you on something else that's going well and you can maybe be better at that. So being able to like notice that about myself and not like sink myself into a cost and be like, no, I'm going to save it. But being like, you know what, guys, like I actually don't think this is a good idea. I know it was my idea originally, but like I was wrong. And like, this is why I'm wrong. And this is why I think I'd be right to do something else.
So synthesizing all that, where do you see your life and career going in the next 5 to 10 years, right? So you've done some investment background, you're a product manager, you worked in high net worth finance. Like where do you see your life going?
Yeah, I certainly didn't think it was going to go here, which is awesome because it's been a pleasant surprise. I mean, you and me sitting in this room is such a black swan event in my mind.
That's beautiful, right?
Hey, you got a crazy view and the team out there is great. It's awesome. For me, like I love doing product work. I love operating. I love going into the situation room and like it honestly being a mess and then getting to clean it up. And that sounds psychotic when you say it, but I really do feel that way. And I think it means that like I should stay in product. I want to grow up and be a product leader, have more junior PMs that I can mentor who then become like me. And then I can lead a product org and maybe one day be a CPO or a founder. And then at some point, do more investing and transition to being that kind of investor, like the value-add investor, kind of like what you guys do. Like you go in and you have an operating process, you buy the control to go in there and change it and make it better. I would love to do that in tech if that means at the early stage, I'm like the in-house product guy that can come in and help you find product market fit. I would love to be that guy, and I'm working towards that.
Okay, last couple questions. What advice, we ask these two all the time, what advice would you give 22-year-old you getting out of college?
Oh my God. Explore more and faster. Because like when I came out of college and I joined JPMorgan, being 22, I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to do this now. Like I just was like siloed and I couldn't get out of my own way.
You're on the track. You're on the track.
I'm on the track. I'm going to grow up. I'm going to be an associate, a VP, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is like, if I could go back in time and do it differently, I would have just been more curious and I would have spent more time being curious. I would have spent my Saturday mornings like thinking about like, oh, like, why do I like this? And like, does anybody else do this? And will they talk to me? I would have networked harder. I would have found better mentors earlier. That is something that I absolutely feel. For example, you ever seen like Arnold Schwarzenegger's commencement speech?
I love it.
Love it.
Love it.
He's like, don't call me a self-made man
Love
because
it.
the people are. I feel so much more that way now than I did at 22 because I didn't recognize that. Because when you're 22, you have a chip on your shoulder. You're like, I have to prove myself. I'm going to be the best analyst. That's ridiculous. Like, go talk to people. Hear what they do. See if it inspires you. And like, change. Change often.
Okay, last question we asked for everybody. What is the best book you've ever read or most influential on you? And tell me about why.
Oh, good one. Man, I got to think for a sec. I've read a lot of books by different tech entrepreneurs, like Peter Thiel's 0 to 1.
Yep.
I feel kind of cliche saying that, but that one's really, really good.
Okay.
Recently read the 48 Laws of Power,
Yep.
which I think you introduced me
One of my favorites.
to. Love that one.
It's a defense against the dark arts for everybody needs to know.
It really is. I read The Art of War, but it was a little tough to get through. It's very context heavy. I'm like ancient China, so it could be a little difficult. I know I'm going to go 48 Laws of Power.
Okay.
Or The Art of Seduction.
I like Art of Seduction's good.
Because that one's not just about what you think it is from the title. It really is a book about getting what you want by like either allies or enemies, and like how do you help the right people and not waste your time in other areas. And I feel that way about life. So those books put me onto that in a way that I couldn't describe.
Super. Great having you out today, Ryan. How do we get in touch with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. I have a Twitter, Ryan Harrington. That's definitely going to be the place to go. So if you want to DM me, I'm always open. I'm happy to talk. Like, I would love the outreach. LinkedIn or Twitter are going to be the best.
All right, bud. Super good to talk to you.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate it.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.